on the Friday, I did a strenuous stair climbing exercise with some friends that we used to do regularly. And afterwards, something doesn't feel right. And then I got to work and I was sitting in the morning meeting and I turned to my colleague and I just said, I'm going to walk out of the room because I'm going to collapse. She's a nurse, so she followed me out. I did observations. I got my bloods done at the hospital. And from that point on, everything came back negative, like there was nothing wrong with me. All my obs were great. The minute I saw my doctor and got my bloods, I knew that the medical system knew nothing about this because I work in the medical system. So I knew already that I didn't want to go down the medical system. I wasn't getting more tests. I've just been enjoying where I'm at, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying being able to do what I want. I can do my groceries, I can clean the house, I can sort through things, I can catch up with friends when I want to, I can drink, although I'm not very tolerant, but I'm pretty much functioning normally. Like last week, I helped take care of a 2-year-old, which is on your feet, running around, attending to a child's needs the whole time. And that was exhausting, but I sprung back from it really quick.
How's it going, Thrivers? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. Today, we're joined by Tess, all the way from Australia. She's had a massive, massive transformation in just the last 12 months, and she is absolutely crushing it. Tess, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Tess. I'm 32. I turned 32 just December gone, and I live in Perth, Western Australia.
And your journey has been pretty wild considering where you were even just a year ago or even less than a year ago. And now I just saw recently you're out there riding horses, which is, pretty crazy to think of. If we were to go back in time, like you probably wouldn't even imagine you'd be able to do that this quickly.
It was just months before I went for a ride that I was saying to somebody else, I think Catherine in the program, she was out riding and I said, I can't wait, to be able to do that. And then it was only a matter of months and I was back out there on the horse, which was amazing.
Yeah. So let's kind of dive deep into some of your story and how all of this came about. When did this all start?
So I was at the end of 2022, I had just finished building my house, which took 2 years. I'd come off of a year of being promoted to acting senior mental health clinician in our community crisis management team. And it had been a really big year. And then over New Year's Eve, I had the best time ever. I went to a 3-day camping festival with some really close friends. And I got COVID at the festival, but I just didn't know. So I spent 3 days dancing and having a great time whilst having COVID, got back, finished moving into my brand new house, building furniture, moving everything in, and tested positive when I realised I had like a sniffle. And then it was really minimal symptoms, so I just didn't think too much about it. And I just went on with life. I wasn't at work the week I had the COVID, but then the following week, I felt fine. I went back to the gym every day in the morning, not strenuous exercises for the first 5 days, but just the gym. And I went back to work. And then on the Friday, and this was the first or second week of January in 2023 now. Then on the Friday, I did a strenuous stair climbing exercise with some friends that we used to do regularly. And afterwards, something doesn't feel right. Something is really off. And then I got to work and I was sitting in the morning meeting, our intake meeting, and I turned to my colleague and I just said, I'm going to walk out of the room because I'm going to collapse. She's a nurse, so she followed me out. I did observations. I got my bloods done at the hospital. And from that point on, everything came back negative, like there was nothing wrong with my bloods, there was nothing wrong with me. All my obs were great, but I just from then had the post-exertional malaise. And so I took 6 weeks off work because that's what my doctor instructed me to do. She said it was just post-viral fatigue. So I took six weeks off work and I still wasn't feeling any better. And everyone started saying, if you go back to work, you'll feel better. And I knew deep down that I wouldn't, because I work in the medical profession. I knew what I was in for. I knew this was serious. I could just tell in my body, but I wanted to believe everyone when they told me I would feel better when I went back to work. So I went back to work and I lasted 2 4-hour shifts. The first one was just a meeting and the second one was managing crisis.
This was around February, right? February 2023 at this point?
The very start of March. I think it was the 3rd of March.
I see.
That was my last shift at work. So I'd been off work already 6 weeks and then I tried to go back and I knew at the end of, I had a client come in and she was suicidal and we were going through an admission process and I started losing my vision and I just knew when I left that day something was wrong and I went home and for 2 days I couldn't move from my bed and by the time I could move a little bit, I grabbed my phone and I messaged mum and said, "You're going to have to come get me."
Wow.
So then I went home to mum and dad, yeah.
So you hit a bit of a wall. And, when when you were going through that January and, the stuff isn't really going away and for 6 weeks, you're trying to rest, trying to recover. What kind of symptoms were you feeling specifically?
In the beginning, it was just the general, like the exertional malaise. So it was just this overwhelming feeling of depression and at the same time as sick and tired. It would just hit me out of nowhere, just really hard after doing such minimal stuff. So then it progressed from there to just being the fatigue started becoming more extreme and being there all the time. And then the emotional side obviously set in, the panic, the anxiety, the depression, and all of those things.
Were you getting like high heart rate or palpitations or things like that or chronic pain at that time or not yet?
Not in the beginning. That wasn't until later on in my journey that I got all the secondary symptoms because I think that my body the fatigue was doing its job in really scaring me. So I don't think my body was bothering with the secondary symptoms yet. The fatigue on its own, I was like a very active, productive person. So fatigue was my ultimate enemy. Yeah.
So March comes along and your body hits another wall and only from a couple shifts. So it's not like you did a whole bunch of things, but I guess you had that emotional experience with that client. So that took a toll on you. Your body kind of hits a wall. What did the next few months look like after that? Did that just like kind of wipe you out?
So I went home to mum and dad, and that was really hard to do. My world was kind of getting smaller and smaller, and moving home with your parents is difficult. And I tried that for a little bit, but then I just wanted to go back home to my own home and try there. So I went back to my house and did IV drips and saw a naturopath and did all of the supplementations and the shakes and everything like that. But I also knew that they were temporary. I did think for a second somebody told me that the IV drips would be enough to pull me out of it for good. So I thought that, but then 4 weeks into $500 a week IV drips, and the NAD was really hard to take as well. Like anyone that's had a NAD IV drip, it's like really uncomfortable, really hard. And not affordable to keep doing it. So I had to stop that at some stage. I did join another program. So I knew from the beginning, the minute I saw my doctor and got my bloods, I knew that the medical system knew nothing about this because I work in the medical system. So I knew already that I didn't want to go down the medical system. I wasn't getting more tests. I wasn't doing this. I wasn't doing that. I gave naturopath a shot, stab in the dark, did nothing. So I was like, okay, the internet is full of doom and gloom. I'm falling into depression. I need people that know the way out. And there was 2 programs, which was yours and another one. And the other one promised no flare-ups and yours didn't.
Really? Yeah.
So their aim is to have no flare-ups, whereas yours was to work through the flare-ups. And I was at a stage where I was like, oh, I'll take the no flare-ups.
Yeah.
So I chose that program purely based on that. and then quickly learned within 4 weeks that that program wasn't for me. It was not the support that I needed. And I knew me really well, and I've been through traumatizing things before. So I knew within 4 weeks that wasn't it. And that was when I was like, I had always felt connected to your approach, and I always felt like I knew that it was neuroplasticity, and I felt connected to you through your YouTube channel. So I don't know if you remember, but I applied and I waited for that interview with you. Like it was like a lifeline. And then just talking to you, I think I was very suicidal at the time that I spoke to you.
Yeah.
And then after talking to you, I felt so much hope that I watched a whole bunch of TV. And then I had to email you and be like, I can't look at my phone or a TV now. What have I done? And you were like, it's okay. Calm down. Like, we can get through this. And it just started from there that I was like, okay, like I'm on the right program. This is right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember that first interaction. You were in a pretty dark place. It was you, and your mom was actually on the call as well. She was accompanying you.
I had moved back. So I'd been at home ago, and then I'd moved back up here after losing a close friend that I'd grown up with to suicide, which was very unexpected. And that kind of threw me even more because of the feelings I was already having. So then I came up here to mum and dad's, and then I stayed here. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was going through your mind, from January to about, I think it was July when we chatted, right? Or it was June or July of last year, about 11 or 12 months ago, or if not sooner or earlier than that. But coming from the medical field, especially in the mental health field, what was it like, dealing with these symptoms, but then not getting answers from doctors and kind of being left on your own with this, and also understanding that, okay, perhaps, mental health can be affecting these symptoms. What was that like, navigating that in the beginning?
That was really, really scary. I have a psychologist that has got me through traumatizing experiences before, and not having a professional that knew what to do or how to help me or understood what I was going through was completely debilitating. It was the scariest thing I've ever experienced. And then Google doesn't help. And it's just the doom and gloom and the despair, just desperation and despair everywhere, because nobody had any answers. And that put me into hopelessness really quick.
Yeah.
Really quick.
Yeah. So I'm really glad you found me and my YouTube channel online, and it really resonated with you. So when we had that first chat, where were you in terms of your recovery, and like in terms of functional levels, in terms of the symptoms you were feeling? Was that kind of the lowest point you had hit up to this point?
When we first interviewed?
Yeah. Or around the time you started?
No. So it was pretty low. I was definitely housebound. I was laying down all day, 99% of the day, but I could listen to things and kind of talk, have some conversations. I wasn't doing anything else. I think I could podcast or audiobook, but even that I could easily overdo. And that wasn't my lowest. No, that was just in May when I started with you. And then I was sick for 3 months at the beginning. I don't know if you remember, but I had like the worst run ever at the beginning of the program because I got sick with the flu. Yeah. And then after the flu, I got like a UTI after having a really bad stomach bug. But then after all that illness, I felt amazing. So it leveled me up and I felt amazing. But because I had not yet like come to learn about my body and about how to slow and how to pace, and I still hadn't learned that patience, I felt good and I went straight to do a lot again. My capacity was still so little that was enough to put me into this downward spiral of getting worse and worse and worse, because I actually managed to leave the house after I got the flu and all the other illnesses. I had such a big boost after that AP that I could leave the house. I was leaving the house. My fatigue had come down to like a 5 from like a 9. I was feeling awesome. And so I overdid it really quickly. And because this was like, I was like a matter of months into being sick, so it was really, I had learned nothing yet about the condition in terms of like my personality and how I had to change my personality temporarily to get to manage it. So yeah, that I overdid it, and then I downward spiraled because I panicked.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then I couldn't talk. I couldn't get to the toilet. I couldn't listen to music, and I was in bed staring into oblivion. And that was the bottom. That was
And at many points, you needed help even bathing, right? Like your mom was really there.
I never showered.
Yeah,
I never, like for like a year.
Yeah,
we would shower me once a month if we were lucky. Mum would wash my hair. She brushed my hair every few nights. She was brushing my teeth whilst I was in bed for a good portion of it. She was doing all of my self-care.
Yeah. She was like the lifeline. And I think it's so important for people to realize like that's where you were, because they see people like me and you here right now just talking, having a regular conversation, sitting up, but they don't realize we were actually in the trenches. Like we needed somebody to brush our teeth for us, somebody to spoon feed us a lot of the times. I mean, I couldn't even like wipe myself down sometimes, let alone take a shower for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. But it's crazy to think about how that was your reality, a year ago.
Wet wipes were my lifeline.
Yeah.
I just like that, you know what, if that was as good as it was going to get, and if I didn't brush my teeth, whatever, I was like, you know what, I was in my dressing gown every day. I laid down every day. I did nothing every day. Mum did her best to do what she could with me. And it was just all a matter of mentally hanging in there. Yeah.
It's really just like surviving, especially for those first few months. I remember it was a pretty rocky start for you, but it was good. We were kind of there, because you were still communicating with us, sending us Discord messages. And I remember a lot of times it was like, we were just hanging on for dear life. I remember the coaches would meet and we're like, hey, we just need Tess to hang on a little bit longer. We need to get her through this flu, right? But she can't really implement a lot of this stuff right now because she's getting hit by so many things. So it wasn't until, what was it, month 4 or 5 or something, where you were able to really, really implement this stuff. I think it was after that big dip you had after you did big expansion, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was like my APs, because of so many different factors, I think I was in an AP for like the whole of last year.
Yeah, like your first 6 months.
I think I was in a constant flare up. And then it wasn't until I hit that rock bottom in September. I think it was around September the 14th. I hit that rock bottom where I couldn't even talk to Krista. I couldn't listen to anyone talk. I was like in that dark, quiet room, laying in mum and dad's bed, just like hanging on for dear life, panicking because I just wanted to talk to Krista, but I couldn't talk. And it was like, I need Krista. I need Krista. And I can't talk to her. So I had to, that's another thing that I really struggled with, being that vulnerable. I had to trust that mum was going to ask the questions and do that side of the communication with Krista as well, which she did. And that was really great because, I really, when I felt like I was losing the ability to communicate with you guys, that was a really, really scary time. But Krista got mum through it, which mum then got me through it, and then I got back to Krista, and then we were getting better.
So let's talk about what happened next after that. So basically, we start working together. Then you get hit with all these different curveballs for like 3 months. You dip, but then you bounce out of it. you know,
Yeah.
pretty nicely, but then we go out and do too much stuff and then we dip even deeper, right? So
Yeah.
coming out of that, what do you think some of the biggest things were that helped you come out of that deep hole?
Krista and the program and watching other people be able to do it, knowing that the coaches had done it. But really, it was a matter of like, when you're at rock bottom, you just don't have a choice, because I knew that if I were to let myself, like you say in the program and like what we learn in the program, I knew that if I let myself think negative thoughts or suicidal thoughts, I knew that that's the outcome that was going to happen. So I just had to I did a lot of Joe Dispenza stuff where I just faked it till I made it. Like, I genuinely would just try and be what I needed to be the person who could recover. So I had a lot of, throughout my whole journey, I had a lot of doubt about whether I mentally could get through another traumatizing experience like of an illness. And I really didn't believe that I had it in me to get through it. And that was my biggest disabling belief. And so teaching myself and telling myself that I needed to be whatever I needed to be. Like, so for example, if I'm laying in bed and I have a choice between a negative thought and a positive thought, I'm going to choose the positive thought, and I'm going to tell myself that I can get through this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get through it, you know, and it's really hard to do. It sounds so easy, but it is so hard to do. But I just did that over and over again. I reached out all the time with Krista. Like, from the get-go, I think Krista knew she was in for like a lot of communication with me, even if it was just me just wanting to get some reassurance, you know, like anything. I never held back from reaching out to Krista at all. Mm-hmm. There was a long period where I couldn't go on the group calls, which was really hard because I wanted to. But not being able to was hard. But then having Krista just kept me still involved, you know, and still going. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was mainly the hope. It was the hope and just hard grit.
Yeah. So so I know what you're saying too. It's a really hard, it's kind of like a train running out of steam and momentum. You know, you lose a lot of momentum when you dip like that, especially for that long of a period of time. Yeah. It's very disheartening. And, you know, you just start thinking to yourself, okay, I had some momentum. I had decent momentum going. It was so hard to build up that momentum. Now I have to do that all over again. And I'm even deeper. Like, I don't feel I have enough fight in me left or enough energy to get this train moving again. Like, how are we going to get this thing moving? So it's one of the trickiest places to be. So there are so many things people can do. And for you, it was faking it till you make it, making the simple decisions of, you know, not going down that downward spiral anymore and choosing to replace it with an alternative potential positive outcome versus the worst case scenario outcome. But, you know, if you could go back in time and let's say you were in that state again, what are some things you would tell yourself to kind of help you go through that window of time a bit easier when you were in that dark place where you could barely function, knowing what you know now?
That you can do it. And, like, you don't have to be special. And like you guys told us from the beginning, it's so funny because it's all the stuff you've told us. And that's why, like, it's so important to trust your coach and just to implement the best you can what they tell you, because it is all the stuff you guys taught us. Like, stay in your 3-foot world. I don't have the ability to look at, you know, the next half an hour. I'm going to look at the next minute. And if I don't have the ability to deal with the next minute, I'm going to deal with right now. I remember having like over a 9 out of 10 migraine and being in bed and like tears were falling down my eyes, but I couldn't cry. And I was just paralyzed in pain. And you just deal with it, with what's there, and you stay present and you try not to think about the future or think too much about the past. And really it is a lot of just being present and having faith and trust in the program and your coach, and just perseverance. And it sounds like so easy to say, but it's, at the time it feels like forever, and everyone on the other end says you'll blink and you'll be better and you'll feel better, and it's impossible in that situation to picture it. It really is, but it's true. And it's mind-blowing. Like, I already get the amnesia where I can't remember, all of my symptoms. I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember I used to get that adrenaline rush and the shaking and the sweats and the migraines and the, like every secondary symptom I got. And I will every now and again have a little blip of like the crackling in the ears, or have a little, like, I'll wake up with some adrenaline and I'll go, oh, I forgot I had that.
That's like, it was a bad dream, right? It's like, it's almost like you have to really, when you think about it, it feels like a bad dream until you realize that, no, that actually happened. But it's such a wild experience. Your brain, I feel like, even me right now, when I think back, my brain almost kind of blocks it out because it's just so different. Like, you can't even write that up. The other things we've gone through, it's just so crazy. We were in that state before, but now we're living our lives, and it's crazy what the body is capable of. The fact that it can dip that low into, and be that hypersensitive, but also it can also pull itself out of that state as well.
Yeah. I was really surprised about how not quickly, because it felt like a lifetime, but from where I was at my worst to where I am now, like it is, once it gets easier, it is phenomenally easier.
Yeah.
Like, there's this line you cross where life could stay like this and you could make do, and from there it's just life-ish problems. Not of it. It's so different. It's so much easier.
Yeah, well, you also have these hockey stick moments, because some people, their progress can be pretty flatlined or even going lower. They can be getting worse. Kind of like with you, yours, you came in, but you took a hard dip, but you kept at it. Like, you were still trying your best. And eventually, there were a handful of mind shifts along the way, and then the progress just shot up. So, instead of being on the steady trajectory upwards, it's like this, dipped, and then boom, you just made so much progress in even just the last 6 months, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
That's where the real leaps and bounds were made. And I think for you, if you could look back on, your journey, what were some of the biggest mistakes you made, or the biggest things that were holding you back? And just so people can take it away and, potentially look for these mistakes they're making. I know for me, there's so many mistakes, I think, but one of the biggest ones is catastrophizing, thinking of worst case scenarios, also overthinking things and over tracking. But for you, what was that, do you think?
I feel like just being scared of mistakes, thinking I had to be perfect, thinking that I had to get everything right to make progress, the perfection, also the not believing in myself, just being like, I've already done my traumatic experience in life. Like, I don't think I have it in me to do another one. And just being like, I call quits. I just didn't feel like life was worth it. And that belief in myself fueled that. So definitely, like, not having the belief that I could do it mentally to get through what I was going through, which is so normal because, like, to get through what we've gone through is huge mentally.
Yeah.
So not believing and knowing you can get through it is normal.
Yeah.
It's so normal, but you can and you will get through it.
Yeah. And I think a sign of that, of not believing or starting to have doubts creep in, is when you find yourself talking yourself out of recovery, or talking to yourself and saying things like, is this really worth it? This is going to take so much effort to recover. Like, is this even going to work? I've put in so much effort. Am I ever going to live a normal life again? Things like that. Those are like signs where you're starting to lose that flame and lose that fight. And a lot of times for me, it's almost like mentally I would throw in the towel and I'm like, I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. But then shortly after that, I go in and like grab the white towel again. It's like, okay, fine. Give me that towel. I'm not going to quit. But there are so many times I threw it in and then I changed my mind after. I'm like, no, I got to keep fighting. I have to keep fighting. There's no other option.
That was my biggest fear, is that like, even if I gave up, like it wasn't going to kill me.
Yeah.
That was people. It's funny because there's people that have the illness that are scared that it's going to kill them. But I knew it wasn't going to kill me. And that scared me even more because I was like, oh, if it gets that bad, I don't want to, exist.
Yeah, it's just torture, right?
Yeah.
Just torture.
Yeah.
So, when you started making progress, what did that look like? And I know we were really tweaking your plan and kind of guiding you like, hey, do this much. Krista was working very closely with you, but what did it look like when you started making all that progress? And actually, maybe even before that question, when did you really turn a corner in your recovery? Was that like this year or back in November, December?
That was this year. So my birthday was the start of December last year. And on my birthday, I was on the couch, comatose, drooling. I couldn't lift my head up. And my friend came around for a very brief moment to let me know that he loved me and happy birthday and that I'll get through it, and gave me well wishes from all of my other friends. Mm-hmm. And then on Christmas, my parents went to our family Christmas, but I couldn't go because I was still housebound. And it wasn't, and the same with New Year's Eve. And I didn't want anyone to stay home with me, to be honest. Like I wanted everyone to be happy and go live their lives.
You'd feel guilty, right? Keeping people home the same way.
Yeah. And so it wasn't until the start of this year that I started slowly seeing bigger progress and then in terms of function around the house and self-care. And then once I had broken out of Housebound, that's when I skyrocketed. And I always knew, me and Krista talked about it so many times, like because of my personality and my natural traits, I knew that once I was free from the house and had access to like things that made you happy and access to my friends and access to independence and driving my car, which like I loved doing. Once I had access to those things, it was just about doing them and forgetting the condition and just respecting the condition at the same time. So not overdoing things by, ignoring myself, which I tended to do. I was a pusher. I pushed through pain, like lots of our generation is taught to. And so, just time learning how to listen to my body. And it gets easier being able to listen to it once you get that access to more joy. It's like, okay, well, I did go out and do this and now you want me to rest, body, so I'm going to lay down. But it's so much easier because you've done something.
Yeah. You got that taste of joy, whereas before there's not even a sprinkle of joy. It's very hard to feel that. So you get these small injections of joy, basically, and they're almost like planting seeds of hope, because then it's like a little taste that makes you more motivated to want to keep moving forward. So even when you're in that AP, you're like, well, I just had a ton of fun doing that activity, or I felt joy. I want more of that. And it makes it seem like, oh, this is so worth it going through all of this, because at least you're getting some kind of reward from all your hard work, right?
And it happened really quickly for me. Like, not obviously last year was not quick. Last year
it was wild. It was rough.
Dry, and being lit on fire at the same time. But this year, once I was able to leave the house, the joy and the things that I was doing was bringing my symptoms down really quick. Yeah. So like I went down to a 5, and I remember being stoked. I was like, oh my God, my fatigue's a 5. This is like epic. And then I was having periods of no fatigue and no symptoms. And I was like, this is amazing. Like I would stop and be like, I feel normal. Like right now I feel normal. I'm normal, phenomenal.
How early did you have those windows of time where you felt normal? Because in December, around Christmas time, you're like on the couch, drooling on yourself, like zoned out, just, feels like you're like normal.
Probably around February.
Really?
Maybe.
Just a couple months, 2 to 3 months after.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty much the minute I could socialize, which I've realized, like, even just the other day, I was feeling pretty tired. I'd been doing a lot more and expanding. And I was like, I was driving to catch up with my work colleagues, my old work colleagues. And I was like on the way there going, am I pushing it? I'm probably pushing it. Oh, well, you can pull over and lay down in the car if you have to. And I got there and I felt great. And I went home full of energy,
Yeah.
And it was just like, I'm at that stage now where people around me are tired.
And
they're telling me they're tired. And I'm like, really?
Yeah. It's nice too when you have that confidence built up again, and then you just know that even if you do flare up, even if you do a whole bunch of stuff, you know how to deal with it. You know what to look for and what to avoid. Like, not to take the bait and go on the downward spiral, because you've been through so many fires, right?
Yeah.
And way worse fires, that this is like nothing compared to where you were before. So it's really hard for your brain to put you in that survival mode. It's hard for it to scare you now, because it didn't kill you before. And you made it up to this point. And it's way harder to go from like couchbound to starting to leave the house than it is to go from leaving the house to doing all these different activities. Like, the hardest part is already over. And I think a part of our brain knows that too, that you're out of the trenches.
It definitely feels like bed is like trenches. Like, you are with your mind, so you better make that place a pretty decent place to be for a while. And then couchbound is an inch better. I was never a person that could watch screens. I mean, screens were my kryptonite. Like, it took me so long to build up my screen tolerance. I still, even now, think that it would drain me if I watched a whole day of TV. It would probably drain me, because I just don't focus on screens anymore because I'm too busy enjoying myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, the screens was a big one, especially when you are in bed or on the couch or at home. It is so hard not to just want to be connected to people and be on your phone watching something or listening to something, and just embracing that complete rest was when I noticed that I was in more control than what I realized.
Yeah.
So when I stopped giving in, and I given in to like the urges to use my phone, and I just started to embrace full rest, like laying down, looking at the garden with no music, no podcast for days, just weeks, months. That was when I noticed that I'd given myself enough of a break to then feel a little bit better, and notice that I do, what I am doing is making a difference. It is influencing how I feel, and like, just it's hard to explain, but definitely embracing the rest was something that took me a long time.
Yeah.
It took me a really long time.
And I think also one of the things that changed for you that we saw was like you started to really simplify things and track things less. Because I remember one time you had a board. You remember that board?
I have.
It's like
I wrote it, and then I never looked at it again.
Yeah, but we looked at it, and I was like, holy crap, this is like all the recovery principles and different possible scenarios all in one board. And we were like, my head hurts looking at this board.
Yeah.
So I remember the coaches, or I was talking to Krista, and because you were kind of in a plateau at that time. We were like, all right, how are we going to break Tess out of this plateau? And then we saw that whiteboard, and we were like, if that's what she wrote on the board, I can't imagine how fast her mind's racing right now. But when you started making tons of progress, it's like you just kept it super simple, and you kind of threw out a lot of those scenario thinking out the window. It was more so just like, like you said, stay in your 3-foot world, and whatever comes up, you handle it when it comes up versus having a master plan.
I started just not trying anymore. Yeah. And if I had a query or a concern or anything, I would just message it to Krista and then let it go. Yeah. So it would be like, you know, I'm not sure about this. And instead of questioning it, I would just message it to Krista. And then I'd just be like, well, that's it. Nothing more I can do. I'll wait for a reply and I'll just forget about it, you know? And so I just put it all on Krista.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just like, I'm not trying anymore. I'm just going to give you any questions and you just tell me and I'll just do what you tell me to do.
Yeah. And that's one of the benefits of it, right? It's like, oh, it's not that you weren't trying. It's you weren't trying to solve all the problems by yourself. You were wondering what to do, but instead of trying to put all the pieces together, it's like, all right, let's just let Krista do the thinking and I'll just do the executing and I'll do the implementation. Krista does the thinking. I'll implement. I'll throw some stuff at her and
instead of continually sitting there and being like, am I pushing? Am I pulling? Am I going? Am I slowing? Am I green or am I red or am I orange or what am I, you know? Yeah. I just, and with time, you just learn your body as well. It really is like a learning your body at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I was so detached from listening to my body that it took a while. But once again, like I found you guys really early on in my recovery. So I was dealing with, you know, the loss of identity, loss of my job, loss of my house, moving home with my parents, you know, loss of my mobility, my independence, my loss of everything. You just lose everything.
Yeah. It's a lot to process.
Even your friends, right? You know, you lose friends. And so I was dealing with all of that at the same time as accepting my condition, at the same time as learning how to manage my condition. You know, it's just, it was just a lot at once. So I think that it is a matter of listening to your body and learning how to listen to your body and trusting that your body's going to reward you if you do. That was my thing. I had no trust with my body or my mind. Yeah. I didn't trust my body or my mind. I was like, you're out to get me. I was like, you're out to ruin my life. You're going to make me miserable. I was like, you know, but then once I started doing what my body was telling me to do intuitively, then it rewarded me for it.
Yeah. Once you started gaining trust with it.
Yeah.
So you turned a corner, you know, earlier this year. This was about 6 months into trying to implement all these things, right? And finally mind shift started to happen. Things started to line up properly with your nervous system. And then you started making progress. And, you know, let us know kind of where your life is at right now. Like, tell us what you're able to do now. And there's so many things you're able to do now that you couldn't even 6 or 7 months ago. But in terms of physically, what kind of stuff are you up to nowadays? Just to paint a picture for people.
So I'm on my feet all day. I don't have rest breaks. I rarely do. And if I do, it's because I've been going for a few days. And it's like, or like the other day I vacuumed the house and it's a huge floor space and it was a vigorous vacuum and I'd cleaned the house the whole day as well.
Oh, I'd be tired of that.
Yeah. And so after that, I laid in the sun for half an hour and I was fine.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like it, and so I'm pretty much doing anything I want to. I'm at that funky stage where the next steps are quite big. So like exercise work. So I've just been enjoying where I'm at, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm just enjoying being able to do what I want. I can do my groceries. I can clean the house. I can sort through things. I can catch up with friends when I want to. I can drink, you know, although I'm not very tolerant. I'm Cadbury, but I'm pretty much functioning normally with minimal symptoms. My symptoms have been flaring up more so lately because I've been doing more. But like last week, I helped take care of a 2-year-old, you know, which is on your feet, running around, attending to a child's needs the whole time. And that was exhausting, but like I sprung back from it really quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And hats off to the mums out there. Like, it's hard. I don't have kids of my own. So
So you're functional,
running
basically.
around.
Yeah.
You're
So you're functional.
just carrying them,
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I'm pretty much doing everything I want whenever I want. I don't think about what I'm doing before I do it. I'm focusing on filling my diary. So every week I want to have something scheduled for each day. I'm looking at things at the moment that I can do to like slowly move back towards work. So I've looked at starting to help a lady with her horses, just rugging, feeding, working the horses.
Mm-hmm.
I go for long drives. There's nothing, I haven't tried a hike. I haven't actually tried walking just for the sake of walking, but I'm on my feet all day. So if I were to put my Apple Watch back on, which I haven't.
Yeah. I remember you used to track. Not anymore, right?
If I was to put it back on, I don't know how many steps I'd be doing, but I've been doing a lot.
Yeah.
Like, on my feet all day. Like, I'm not laying on the couch watching TV. I'm not laying on the couch.
Yeah.
Like, I'm driving.
Tell us about the big activity, riding horses. Tell us about that. Because you're literally riding horses, which is pretty wild, considering you were drooling on you were on the couch drooling on yourself in December 7 months ago. Now you're riding horses, and I saw a video of that. I was like, holy cow, she's crushing it.
Yeah, there is so many, like, I even was kicking the footy the other day. I went down and watched one of my old footy club's games, and I was having a kick at like halftime, and I just didn't even think about it. I was just like, I'd missed it, and I was like, oh, come kick the footy with me. And so I was kicking the footy, and I just thought, I'm kicking the footy. Like, like it doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. And especially when you're not getting symptoms from it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of some other big things. I've been out to social things. I'm holding a Christmas in July tomorrow with some close friends to celebrate Christmas, because I missed out last year. Yeah. And that was what me and Krista had said, like, we'll do it in July. So I'm doing that, which is really exciting. And it was kind of getting stressful as well. I was like, oh God, there's like 15 people coming now. Like, oh my God, how am I going to organize and host for 15 people? But I'll be fine.
That's epic. That is so epic. I mean, going from not even being able to celebrate Christmas last year and having to pass on it to now hosting a Christmas for a bunch of friends and 15 people organizing that. That's a different world than 7 months ago.
I've been moving furniture, like I've been as active as what I was before, minus the 5 to 6 days a week of sport.
Yeah.
And work.
Yeah.
So functionally, like, I'm sound.
Yeah.
And like, I have one of my best and oldest friends' weddings in Melbourne, which is a 3-hour flight in September. So I'm going to that, and depending on how that goes, I might just jump on another plane and go to Bali and catch up with another friend. And I feel like I could even go to the wedding if it was like next month.
Mm-hmm.
Only 2 months away, but I've really.
You could probably do it next week, realistically.
Yeah, true.
With your level of functioning.
Yeah, I've just been maximizing the functional stuff, not so much the elaborate kind of things. I'm just doing a lot of small stuff at once without breaks.
Yeah.
But yeah, riding, like driving, everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now, like, some of the other things I've done. I went to the art museum with my family. I'm trying to remember things.
It's just so normal for you now. It doesn't seem like a big thing, right? It's just normal. Like, yeah.
That's why I don't even think to post things, because I'm like, I'm just like living. Right? I'm just alive again.
Yeah.
Like, you forget the big stuff.
Yeah. And what is it like now? What are some of the biggest differences now, with the 2.0 Tess coming out of this whole illness versus the Tess you were before, in terms of the way you go through life? what are the biggest differences, like maybe mentally and emotionally? Do you see the world in a different way? And do you feel like you're a different person than you were before after going through this experience?
It's hard to explain because at the same time as feeling different, I also feel like me. Like I feel like the person I was last year wasn't me. And I feel like I've found myself again. But there is like this flavor that's been added that's a little bit different, you know, like an old recipe that's just added something different. And I'm still working on giving myself credit for how far I've come. I think it's really hard to look back and give yourself that credit. And I don't know if other people experience the same thing, but that's something that I've noticed before in my life as well. Just being able to come out of it and be like, look how resilient I am. Look at what I got through, you know, like I can do anything in life. That's there, but I know that it's going to get stronger the better I get. But I'm just I'm slower. You know, the sense of urgency has come way down from how I lived my life before. You know, I don't easily get bored.
So you live life at a more sustainable pace, essentially, versus rushing through life or feeling the need to rush through life.
Yeah, things have slowed down a lot. And the gratitude is always there. You lose it every now and again when you forget. But then it's always there. Like you will always have reminders daily of like, you know, like you know what it's like to be a 98-year-old in a nursing home. So you're going to take your youth, you know, you're not going to take it for granted. And I also, once you've been so sick and hopeless and desperate and you make a deal with yourself, you intrinsically can't go against it. So when I was really sick, I promised myself I would stay true to myself and what I knew deep down I wanted in life and what I wanted out of life, you know. And I was never going to go back into the rat race again. And I was going to, like with the horses, you know, like I had let that go. I'd gotten stuck in the rat race, and it was something that I used to watch Yellowstone and like my heart would hurt because I'd be like, oh, I need horses in my life. And now like I made that promise with myself that they'll be in my life. Like that. And so you just come out of it with this determination to really live your life to the max because you didn't go through what you went through not to.
Yeah. And during those darkest times, I think it forces you, especially those times when you couldn't move in bed and it's a dark room and you literally have to stare at the ceiling and you have to create this imaginary world in your head to keep your mind occupied for the day so you don't go crazy. You start creating this fantasy in your head of, okay, if I were to get better, if I was better, what would I want to do? What does the dream life look like? Because you need some kind of escape. So then it forces you to think of what's really important to you, what really matters. Right?
And it hits you smack in the face.
Oh, yeah.
Like I really struggled when I was at my lowest and my most depressed. I really struggled to find things that were worth going through it for. I was like, nothing is worth this. You know, I really struggled with that. And then things would come and just smack me in the face like, okay, tomorrow you can live one day of life. What would you do? And I'm like, I want to be riding into the sunset. So, you know, like and you just know, and they hit you and you watch it on TV or, you know, something, you have a thought or you listen to a podcast or a book and it'll be like, that's what I want to do. You know, I started writing a song on piano with my friend. I don't know how to play piano, but I just started because I was like, I've always wanted to do this. I'm going to do it. You know, I listened to things that I never listened to fantasy books before in my life, and I'd always wanted to, and I'd just never done it. And then I got sick and I listened to on audiobook, 10 Sarah J. Maas books. And I was just like hooked. I lived and breathed her for like 6 months. And I would never have done that if this didn't happen. And I would never have known that I really enjoy that if this hadn't have happened. And, you know, some things just stay in your recovery journey. So, you know, you might not go back to reading fantasy books, but some things you actually carry on into the rest of your like healed journey. And that's where I'm at now. Just what do I want to bring along? What do I want to add in?
Yeah.
You know, it's overwhelming, the choices.
Oh, yeah. And it's kind of like the new and improved version of Tess. And just like you said, it's like a different flavor to who you are as a person. And, you know, that's what I hear a lot of. I see it all the time. You hear it from people in the program. And sometimes it's hard to hear when people say getting sick was the worst thing that happened to me, but also the best thing that happened to me. And a lot of people go, whoa, 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 the best thing that happened to you, how is that possible? And the thing is, you'll never really understand that until you get to the other side.
Yeah.
And you start feeling the benefits of going through this journey, because you have to, a lot of who you are, you kind of had to get rid of old personality traits, old habits. You have to like turn the dial down on them, but that creates space for more healthy, sustainable habits that are going to take you further in life. And I think not even just further, but just help you live a more fulfilled life and be able to do the things that are fulfilling for you and stay true to yourself, you know?
Yeah. You definitely don't take life for granted.
Yeah.
Once you start getting better. So when I first got sick, because I've been through an illness before that I came out the other side and was really grateful for. So I knew that it was there to teach me things, and I knew that I was going to come out of it. I didn't know I was going to come out of it, but I knew that if I came out of it, I would have these feelings about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting closer to it. Like I'm definitely feeling that way, but I've got that part of recovery left to solidify those feelings.
Yeah.
You know, that day that I can look back and go, you know what? I actually think I'm fully recovered. I think that period of your recovery is when it's so solidified. You don't have any of those doubts in the back of your mind. Like I still every now and again will have this little like, oh, are you better off because of it? Or, you know, are you going to come out with any things to fix? But like, that's life. Like growth is forever. So.
Absolutely. So for people watching this right now, you know, wrapping this up, you know, what's something you want to share with them if they were in your shoes a year ago or when you were at your worst? If there's people who are able to listen to this and they're hearing your story and they're seeing you today sitting up healthy, glowing, and being able to ride horses and go out and live your life, but they're also hearing where you came from and they're thinking, you know, Tess is one of those miracle stories. How did she do that? Like, is she an alien? Is this even possible? Did she ever have this? Like, what are some words of encouragement you would want to share with them, and maybe things you would want to hear when you were in that place as well?
Yeah. God, there's so many things. The first is that, you know, I have no doubt in my mind that long COVID, fibromyalgia, all of them, chronic fatigue, are nervous system disorders, you know, just like we talk about in the program. I have no doubt in my mind that that is true. And I never did. And I was one of the lucky ones that I had the background, that I already knew the polyvagal theory and things that it made sense. It made complete logical sense to me. The medical system is not up to date. You know, they're hopefully one day, please, they will be on the same page, but they're not. And to go down those rabbit holes and to believe a system that doesn't understand something, you know, how can you trust what they say if they don't even know how to explain what it is? So just forget about that, you know, and mainly I'm not special. Like I'm really not. I was you sitting there watching recovery stories all day, every day at some points. I watched Alessia's recovery video. I watched Junior's recovery video. I watched Krista's. I watched everyone's multiple times over and over again, sitting there thinking, yeah, but they've just got that quality, you know, they've got that strength.
Something I don't have, right?
Undeniable belief in themselves. I don't have that. I don't have that, therefore I can't do it. And I did that the whole time I watched recovery videos. And now I'm doing a recovery video, you know, like I'm not special, and everyone has the same abilities to get through this. We really do. We have different hurdles and different traits, but, you know, we've got pros on others and cons. So, for example, you know, something that might be my downfall will be somebody else's strength, and vice versa. You've always got strengths to work with, always. That, you know, even if you don't believe in yourself, tell yourself you do. You just fake it till you make it, because you will make it. Don't give up. You know, like if I had given up and not found your program or not given your program a shot, I wouldn't be here today. And, you know, like a year ago, I thought that this was forever and that I didn't want to live like this forever. And so I didn't want to be here. And now I'm more than halfway back to a full life, and I'm happy where I'm at, you know, like even if this is as far as I got, like Krista says in hers, like even if this is as far as I got, this is livable. This is enough. And I've still got so much more to go. And yeah, I just want people to know that they can do it, and that, yes, it's hard work. It is hard work, but you're harder. It's hardcore, but you're more hardcore, you know, like God, I'm not religious, but whatever we're here for, like we can manage it.
Yeah,
we really can. And I don't think that this would happen to anyone if they couldn't get through it, you know?
Absolutely. I 100% agree with everything you just said. And especially the one thing you said about, yes, this is hard to do. It's hard to recover, but you know what's harder? Staying sick.
Yeah.
And just holding on for dear life, not trying something like this or trying this approach, or, you know, looking at it as a nervous system issue or a hypersensitive nervous system issue. It's so much harder to sit there in the dark and wait for someone to come up with a magic pill that's going to fix this, or hope the research from all these medical centers come out with a treatment. There are solutions out there, and there are people getting better. So you have to consume those stories, listen to what these people are saying, and know that it's possible. And they're just normal people. In fact, a lot of the people who do videos like this, they're worse than maybe you watching this right now. You know, there's people who are hospitalized. I was hospitalized for 2 months and I came out of it. So if Tess can do it, if other people can do it, and it's not like just luck, like there's so many people in the group who recover, right? You're not the only one. So there is like a predictable process, like a duplicatable system that you can follow. Not saying that it's easy, it's hard work, but there is a system you can follow.
That's the one thing that really I questioned throughout the whole of my recovery, up until I was on that other side of the fence. Not fully recovered, but there's that fence where things just so much easier once you're out of the house, especially. And mine was, is this going to be worth it? You know, and it is. I don't know how to.
It's absolutely worth it. 100% worth it. Yeah. And there's so much more to go for you. That's the exciting part. It's like the rocket is just taking off, and you're able to experience these things. And just like myself, 3 or 4 years ago, I thought, man, if my life is like this for the rest of my life, I'm happy. Everything like after I got out of the hospital, that was like a cherry on top. It was icing on the cake. So now I got this cake that's massive, this life, so many cherries on top, and it just gets better and better. And if I'm having a rough day or a stressful time or something happens, I'm like, this was all a bonus anyways. Like there was a time when I wished I could be here right now. So it's hard to have a bad day, or if you have a bad day, it's hard to get stuck there, because all you have to do is think about, man, this is literally, I'm living the dream. I'm truly living the dream.
I loved Jeremy Renner, the actor. He said it so well the other day on a video I saw. But once you've had the worst day of your life, you'll never have another bad day. Yeah. You know, and I really do feel that. Even the days that it is hard, or I'm trying to figure out something, my identity, I'm working on things, or, you know, I'm a little bit flared up, or I'm having a difficulty with somebody in my life, it's just nothing compared to where we've been. You know, you will never have another bad day like that bad day. You know, once you've hit rock bottom, there's only up. Yeah,
totally. And there's this quote, I heard it somewhere, but the problems you have today is the life you wish you had before. So it's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. Like, you wish you had the problems you're dealing with today back when you were in that room staring
That's
at the ceiling.
true. Krista, Krista keeps pointing this out to me lately, like, practice the gratitude because you lose perspective really quick when things get going good. And you got to remind yourself that, like, man, I would have loved this problem compared to the last problem.
Right? Like, before before the problems were, I hope my lungs don't shut down on me today. I hope I make it till the end of the day and I wake up tomorrow. Now it's like, oh, the weather's kind of crappy. That sucks. But maybe not that bad, but perspective is everything. And once you've touched the bottom, everything else above that looks pretty darn good. It's hard to have a bad day.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So anyways, this has been quite the chat. We're already like an hour and 10 minutes in. That flew by. And I feel like we could talk for hours about this stuff. But it's so cool to see how far you've come. And, all of you guys, I know you meet up with some of the other thrivers in your city who have recovered as well. And it's so cool to see not just you guys recover individually, but, recover together and the friendships you make. And
Alessia and Jordan have been waiting for me for a year.
Right?
They've been waiting for a year for me to be able to catch up with them. So we're catching up soon. And it's, they joined a lot earlier than me, but just the fact that we're able to do that. Like, I've been waiting a year to be able to do that with them. Yeah,
that's awesome. So, for people watching this right now, I hope you found a lot of inspiration in this chat. And, Tess, everything we talked about doesn't even do it justice of what you've been through and your journey. I mean, we were there. I was on the Zoom calls when you couldn't even move on the call and you had those shades on, right?
Yeah.
So, if Tess can do it, if all these other people can get their lives back and they were in a very dark, debilitating place to the point where they felt like giving up, then, you can get your life back too, right? And she's not an alien. I'm not an alien. We're humans just like you. We're not perfect. We don't have anything special that you don't have. And we were in the trenches as well. So just keep fighting, keep on consuming this kind of content, and just always remember that there is a life after this. And that life is going to be even better than the previous life, So hope you enjoyed this video. If you did want some extra help, we're happy to help you get there. There's a link in the description below, and you could apply to see if you're a good fit. We want to make sure, the people we work with are ready to do something like this, because it does take full commitment and jumping all in. But other than that, always remember that you are a thriver and you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. We'll see you all in the next video. Tess, thank you so much. Let's keep on thriving.
Thanks so much for having me, Miguel. It's been a milestone dream to do a recovery video. So
absolutely,
I'm happy to pass on the baton.
Yes. And we'll do another one too. We'll do another one in the future when you're even better and thriving even more. And, that's going to make this recovery video look like we were just getting started, because you're going to be doing so much stuff. So can't wait to do that one. But awesome. Thank you so much, Tess.
Thanks, Miguel. It's so good.